There you go.
Welcome committee members and members of the public to this July 17th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board Executive Committee meeting. For the record, my name is Hugh Anderson, Chairman of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. Katie, will you please take roll call, confirm a quorum, and verify posting?
Sure thing. Okay, Katie Gilbertson for the record. So first off for roll, we have Chair Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. We have Vice Chair Evans.
Present.
Thank you. We have Robert Benner.
Present.
Thank you. We have Jerry Merritt.
Present.
Thank you. Councilman Black. Okay, and then Crystal Slaughter at a pre-notified absence, Mr. Chair, and Scott Hammond will be joining the meeting a little bit late, but we do have a quorum. So Mr. Chair, Katie Gilbertson, Governor's Office Workforce Innovation for the record. I hereby affirm that this July 17th, 2024 Governor's Workforce Development Board meeting has reached a quorum. I further affirm the agenda and notice for this meeting were properly posted pursuant to Nevada's open meeting law, NRS 241020.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed, I'd like to request that anybody who speaks today to identify yourselves for the record, and we'll move on to agenda item number 4, public comments. Members of the public on remote technology are invited to provide comments at this time. No action may be taken on any matters during public comments until the matter itself has been included on an agenda as an item for possible action. Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. Is there any discussion before I call for a motion to approve the May 15th, 2024 Executive Committee minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve the May 15th, 2024 Executive Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Rob Benner, motion.
Ken Evans, second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please let the record reflect that the motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 6 for possible action. The Vice Chair recognizes, well, I'll let the Vice Chair recognize, but it's Ken, you're up.
Sorry about that.
All right, I just threw you the ball and you weren't looking.
Okay, this is for the strategic plan.
No, actually, this is for the compliance policies.
Oh, I'm
All
sorry.
right, I'll pull it back. That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to recognize ESD Program Chief with Dieter Wiss Kara Abe to present state compliance policies 1.3, 3.5, 4.7, and 5.2. Kara?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. For the record, my name is Kara Abe, ESD Program Chief with Dieter's Workforce Innovation Support Service Office, also known as WIS. I'd like to thank the Executive Committee for allowing me this time to present our 4 state compliance policies that have been revised for the committee's review and approval. The first state compliance policy presented is 1.3. This policy provides guidance on local workforce development board if they were to provide career and training services prior to this revision. WIOA references from 2005 were used. These have been updated in accordance to WIOA law and the Code of Federal Regulations, with links to these references included throughout the revision where possible. The second state compliance policy is 3.5, which provides guidance on contract and subgrant closeout procedures for WIOA funded activities. Prior to this reversion, the policy contained WIA references from 2005 again, which have been updated in accordance with WIOA law and current Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. Links to these references have been embedded for easy accessibility throughout the document. Additionally, formatting needed to be updated and revised to the current standard format that is used for all state compliance policies. The revisions highlighted in red on the final draft remove a redundant reference to 29 CFR, or Code of Federal Regulations, that is already covered in 2 CFR. The third state compliance policy is 4.7. This policy conveys procedures to be used by all Employment and Training Administration, or ETA, grant recipients for immediately documenting and reporting allegations of fraud, program abuse, or criminal conduct involving grantees or other entities. This also includes subgrantees who may be receiving federal funds either directly or indirectly from ETA. The Code of Federal Regulation references have been updated throughout the document to reflect the correct sections, as previous references were revised or inactive. The Training Employment Guidance Letter, or TEGL, TEGL, 2.12 has been rescinded and has been replaced with TEGL 15.2, the references in this document. The additional reference also includes State Compliance Policy 5.2. Any of the broken links that were discovered in the original document have been corrected and or removed. And the last policy is 5.2. This policy is to transmit procedures and the reporting form to be used by all Employment and Training Administration, ETA grant recipients for documenting and reporting allegations of fraud, program abuse, or criminal conduct. Again, references throughout the document have been updated to include the correct links that were broken and for easy accessibility. The TEGL for this one, 212, has been rescinded and replaced with 1523, with additional references from State Compliance Policy 4.7. The draft links directing users to the incident reporting form and the instructions were broken on the original policy. These have since been replaced with the more updated correct versions to provide the same information from the Office of Inspector General. These 4 policies are being revised for compliance and to provide clear and concise guidance to the local workforce boards and their providers for local area policy development. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the policies or revisions presented.
Any questions for Kara? Thank you, Kara.
You're welcome.
So I'll call a motion to approve SCP 1.3, 3.5, 4.7, and 5.2.
This is Vice Chair Evans for the record, so moved.
Thank you,
Rob
Ken.
Benner, second.
Thank you, Rob. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please let the record reflect that the motion carries. Thank you again, Kara. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 7 for discussion information only. That I recognize Vice Chair Evans, Owen Director Scott Hammond. He hasn't arrived yet, has he, Katie?
Not yet.
Okay. And Owen Policy Analyst Katie Gilbertson to share the GWDB strategic plan with the executive committee and discuss implementation and execution of the plan. So who wants to start it off?
I'll do it, Chair Anderson. I'll do a very brief intro and turn it over to Ms. Gilbertson and Mr. Hammond as soon as he's available.
And before you start, Ken, can I ask everybody who's not speaking to mute their phones because we have some background noise going on? Thank you. Go ahead, Ken.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Vice Chair Evans for the record. What I'd like to let everyone know is that thanks again to the subcommittee that helped to not only get the compliance oriented state plan done, but above and beyond that, helped us to get a first ever strategic plan drafted, done, coordinated, discussed with both internal and external stakeholders to get us to the point where we are now. What I would remind everyone is when we set out to do this strategic plan, we said we wanted a document that would be actionable, that would allow us in real time to make the necessary modifications, improvements, and be innovative in terms of our workforce development system, so that when it's all said and done, it'll be a system that is even more professional and culturally competent. And beyond that, make sure that there's awareness and access on the front end. And then on the back end, it's a system that helps to create career paths and employment that leads to career paths with a livable wage. So I think we've come up with a strategic plan that'll help us do that. And again, I want to say thank you to the core strategic planning committee that helped us to do it. And a special thank you to Director Hammond and Ms. Gilbertson for their efforts to get this presentation together, as well as to get the document in its final form. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Gilbertson, as well as Director Hammond when he's available. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Katie Gilbertson for the record, so I'll be running the slides, speaking on Scott's behalf before he jumps on. So this is just a PowerPoint, like Vice Chair Evans has mentioned, to go over a strategic plan. So let's get into it. The plan just kind of kicks off with a general understanding of what the Governor's Workforce Development Board is, which you guys already know pretty darn well. And then this kind of the strategic plan background really goes over how this came to be. You know, as just the brief overview, we did the WIOA state plan over the course of all last year and beginning of this year with the guidance of Miss Nancy Olson, the wonderful Miss Nancy Olson. And so from that, it was really, how do you take all this hard work and implement it in an actionable and timely way, which is how we got to the strategic plan. So as soon as we submitted the WIOA state plan in March, it was time to start getting ready and gearing up for the strategic plan. We assembled the strategic plan task force. They took the parts and elements from the WIOA state plan they thought were necessary to go and implement, and as well as adding some things that were left out of the WIOA state plan that WIOA just doesn't might overlook in the importance of carrying out in its vision. So we got the strategic plan task force together with the members of our Governor's Workforce Development Board, got a draft that seemed more ready to go. We sent that out for stakeholder engagement to around 75 partners across the state, which was very well received, and we got lots of feedback, which then formed the final draft of the strategic plan that we presented to the governor's office at the end of May. The governor provided a letter of support, and their office spoke at our last Governor's Workforce Development Board full board meeting in June. And so here we are today. We're kind of carrying this out and going over everything that is in the strategic plan. So, and then this slide here goes over the charge of the Governor's Workforce Development Board and kind of what our renewed mission is, and in terms of how we are going to carry out and execute the WIOA state plan, the Governor's Workforce Development Board strategic plan. So obviously our charge is that we have industry representatives, labor representatives, and government representatives. And when we come together for this workforce development, boards every other month, we're going to craft policy recommendations and listen and see what should be recommended to policymakers in the state, and our local workforce development boards and partners as well. And then the mission that comes out of that is kind of the three pillars that we have here, which are population. So helping those that have low labor force participation rate and high unemployment rates, and we're going to define them as underserved populations. The barrier subcommittee's been doing a lot of work with these guys. Then we're going to promote awareness and engagement with the private sector, right? Because that was kind of the piece that was lacking in the WIOA state plan, was how do you branch, job seekers to employers. So that was a pretty big pillar that we added with the strategic plan, was making businesses aware of the public workforce system and how they can become involved and benefit from it. And then the last pillar of the strategic plan is alignment. And so how do you take job seekers? How do you take supportive services? How do you take employers? How do you take all these other players that are already in this sphere and put them together. And I think that's what the Governor's Workforce Development Board really is all about. So that's a huge pillar of it all, is kind of putting it all together and getting something out of it. So from that, here's our 3 goals again. We're going to go over each of them a little bit more in depth. So we'll start with the population goal right here. So this is that we're going to mitigate the workforce and learning barriers for our underserved populations. And so if you go here, this is like the tree map of how it laid out, just really to kind of structurally see it. And it's hard to read. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it. You guys have these slides to read more in depth later on. But so the first strategy under our goal to help our underserved populations is to increase awareness of the system with the clients. And so there's 2 action items that the board is going to pursue to increase awareness of the system, which one is making a shared calendar of events across all our partners, just to get everybody on the same page of, I'm doing this resource fair on this month, and then you can benefit by going to this resource fair the other month or something like that, just to make sure that everybody is aware of the same opportunities and not duplicating efforts. So we have that as an action item, or second action item to increase awareness is to track the effectiveness of this outreach efforts. And that would be through like getting some more metrics and stuff like that. There's a dashboard here mentioned that I'll talk a little bit about later. But just, to kind of see your measurement was that you had a job fair with all your partners, or you had you created a job center. The second action item is, what came about because of that, right? How did you benefit from this increased awareness and increased outreach kind of thing? So each action item has a measurement, which I just spoke a little bit about. Each one has a time frame, which will display a timeline also later in the presentation. And each action item also has an execution team, which we'll talk later about in the presentation as well. So right now we're just kind of going over this more conceptually by topic. So that is our first strategy under populations to increase awareness. And then the second is to increase access to the public workforce system for the client and for the job seeker. So what does that mean? Our 2 action items here are to develop a better application like intake and referral system. And I know there's been some work going on with this as described earlier in the year about when you go into a job center and you're not necessarily talking to the right person, how do you get to that right person the first time? So it deters from, people getting lost in the system and, just losing hope, right? So developing a better intake and referral system is definitely at the top of mind for this strategy here, increasing access. So the way we're going to measure success in this action item is increased referrals and less lag time in between when somebody touches the system and when somebody benefits from the system. Our time frame here, we're making this more of an immediate item just because there's already been work done on this. And then we have a big team of partners here, obviously the ones that interact with the clients the most. Our second action item in the access strategy is to create an asset map for job seekers of supportive services and workforce services, for them to say, hey, I don't even know where to start. Hopefully if they could have a tangible product that says, if you need, food, go to this place. If you need clothing, go to this place. If you need this sort of training, go here. This is something that's been brought up by the barrier subcommittee before. So the barrier subcommittee, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they will be taking the charge with this one. So again, the measurement here is just getting it done. We'd like to get this done before the legislative session next year. And we're just putting ourselves going and the Governor's Workforce Development Board as the execution team with that to create the product, but obviously with the input and assistance from all our wonderful partners. And then the third strategy under helping our underserved populations is going to be increasing the supply of services, so that we can make sure that the workforce that's helping people get into the workforce is supported. So the first action item to do that is to, make sure that these client assisting staff have, you know, good career opportunities. You're keeping the people that want to be there engaged, and you're, you know, not losing the great people to other opportunities, and we're supporting that staff that helps people develop. So measurement here would be, you know, increasing caseworkers or maybe even job satisfaction or something like that. This is obviously kind of a longer time frame thing because it's not easy to just hire a whole bunch of people and measure how well that went. And so our execution team here would be more with the people that do the frontline work. And then the second action item for supplying the workforce that helps the population is to see where services can be a little bit more streamlined. I think that'll go in concert with the asset map, just to say like, hey, we have all these people supplying these services. Would somebody's time at X organization be better spent doing, you know, what their competitive advantage is, sort of thing, like an allocation of resources to make sure that everybody's time is being spent the most efficiently. So that'll be used in concert, like with what I said with the asset map for job seekers. So the measurement there would be, you know, taking that asset map and doing like a crosswalk of similar services, and then beginning those conversations on where things can be streamlined. This would be something that would be great to accomplish during the legislative session, like near the end next year. And again, we put ourselves as execution team with the input and guidance of our other organizations in mind. So Chair, Vice Chair, you want me to keep going? You want me to
Well,
pause
while
for
we step there
questions?
for questions, in case anybody has questions on this segment. Jerry, Rob, anybody? Is it pretty straightforward and clear?
Okay. All right, so goal 2, this one's a business goal. So this is increasing engagement and awareness with employers in the public workforce system. So again, here's our tree map of how the goals work with the strategies, work with the action items. We'll break that down here. So in engagement, our first strategy is awareness. So just making sure that employers even know what the public workforce system is and how it can benefit them. We have 3 action items under this umbrella. The first is to launch a Did You Know campaign, and board member Susan Breakers mentioned this before in the full board meetings of like, you know, do businesses even know the great resources that are available to them? So launching that Did You Know campaign also kind of goes with the things that were brought up with the WIOA estate plan, and outreach is hard to accomplish through WIOA. So I think trying to be creative with this Did You Know campaign, it will try and help link businesses and the system. So a couple different measurements we could try here are increased website traffic, direct employer engagements, things that could show that impact. The time frame here seems like it could hopefully get done by the end of this year. So we put that as December 24. Execution team here. You can see that instead of just the client-facing organizations, we've also added in a lot more of the business-serving organizations. So Chambers of Commerce, GoEd, our RDAs like LVGEA and EDON, our trade organizations, business and industry. We're adding more of those business serving partners to marry with the ones that help the job seekers. Our second action item here under increasing awareness with employers and the system is to cross-promote workforce services with common business serving agencies. So this suggestion would be like, if you're registering your business with the Department of Taxation, you would also get a referral to say like, hey, did you know employee NV can do this for your business, or doing things like that. So it's already there when the business has to talk to the state anyway, because they probably don't want to engage with government more than they need to, but they get it right away. And it's kind of this cross promotion. It goes with the Did You Know campaign, right? It's just promoting with employers to say, hey, we're here and we have these resources for you. So the measurement here would be just consistent branding, and probably also like, I don't know if you could track referrals, like maybe like a survey of like, how did you hear about the service? Maybe we could see if they heard from Secretary of State's office or something like that. But the time frame here, this is a little bit more of like a longer term thing, just because you'd have to track. We first have to get something going and then track how well that engagement and cross promotion has gone. So we put that time frame as September 25. Then the execution team again is our office, as well as the ones that businesses have to already engage with, just as part of being a business. And then the third action item under increasing awareness strategy is to ensure small businesses are a priority. This has been brought up before too, in that small businesses are probably the ones that don't have a ton of HR resources and everything like that, and they could probably greatly benefit from the public workforce system resources as they have them. So making them a priority, and not to say that they already haven't been, but I think, you know, when you specifically call something out, it lends more attention to it. So it's just, you know, this is going to be an ongoing thing. It doesn't have to start in September of next year, but just, you know, making it more intentional to attend their small business advocacy events and partner with them, and make sure that, you know, in the same spirit of all these other action items, that people know, that small businesses know, and that these resources are available to them, and showing them the benefit of working with the public workforce system. So that's our 3 action items under that strategy of awareness with businesses in the public workforce system. And then our second strategy here is just to make sure that the training and everything that goes into the public workforce system is actually conducive to what employers need. So this is kind of the effectiveness strategy, right? Just to make sure that what people are being trained in is actually what employers need. And the way we're going to do this is actually pretty interesting. We're going to work with the Governor's Office of Economic Development to make a in-demand skills list. We already do an in-demand occupations list with them. So this would be the nice complement to that, and just figuring out what are the in-demand jobs, and then what are the in-demand skills that employers need. Once we develop the in-demand skills list, we're going to, you know, go to the training providers and say, hey, you know, do your trainings, you know, encompass these kind of large areas that we're seeing with this in-demand skills list, so that your person, when they're done out of your program, can use those skills to get these jobs that, you know, that's what they're requesting. So I know this was done a couple years ago, like in 2017 with our office. So it'll be great to kind of reinvigorate those efforts. We'd like to get this done before the legislative session. I think that would be a really interesting, tangible product to show to the legislature. So that's what we're gonna do. And then our execution team, you see the Governor's Workforce Development Board, as you guys are the board of employers and can add some perspective into this. Our office, GoEd, and then also with the training providers and education partners, just to say, are these skills in what you're providing to your trainees and your students? So anything there, Mr. Chair?
Just going back to action item 3B, this is Hugh Anderson for the record. When you say, and forgive me if I missed this when you had explained it, under the execution team, nonprofits, are you talking about business organizations like various chambers of commerce and the like?
Yeah, and I didn't put chambers of commerce on there, but yeah, and I would say like their startup NV, things like that.
Because, and the reason I asked the question is because all of those organizations are already doing a lot of the logistical work of having regularly scheduled events and so forth. And for us to be able to piggyback on what they're already doing, and just by participating, relieves the burden of us initiating those kind of events.
Mm-hmm. And interactions and you know, showing what we can offer them.
Exactly. All right, thank you.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else have questions on this section? Okay, Katie?
All right. Last one. Okay, so this one's alignment. I would say this is probably the biggest picture sort of goal. So we're going to take education, economic development, and workforce development, private and public partners, and make sure everything's working as it should. So this is another one of the larger outlines here that we have, but we're going to break this down again. So our first strategy and alignment is to make sure that, again, awareness, make sure that all players in the field know what everybody's doing. And like how I said with that, the first or the last one in population is eliminate duplication of services where possible. So our first action item here in awareness is just to make an inventory of all workforce partners in the state. Just to get an idea of what everybody's doing. This is already also in the works between our office and LVGEA. So we'd like to get that inventory completed and publicly shared. We put the time frame for that as December because hopefully we can already put what's already up there by then. And then these all kind of piggyback off of each other. So after the inventory, we would create an asset map from that. So that's action item 2C. Just to kind of say, we have this big list of who everybody is. Here's our asset map of what, the specific services everybody can do very well. And so, yeah, for just the measurements to complete that asset map, we said this is going to be kind of sequential. So that would be during the session in May. The next one after that would be effectiveness. So our second strategy is effectiveness and making sure that we use that asset map and then we develop a gap analysis to see where are where is our assets not, where are they not actually at currently. So 3C is going to be taking the asset map and doing a gap analysis to see where are we falling short in the services we have. And then doing stakeholder engagement to figure out, well, what's actually needed if we have, 10 training programs in one industry, but we really need 2 in another, how do we best allocate those resources? So the gap analysis, like I said, these are all pretty subsequent steps, but that one be completed in September of 25, as well as starting that stakeholder engagement to see what would be the best next logical step. And then finally for 4C, after you do the gap analysis, then you can start doing new programming, right, to fill those gaps. So that's action item 4C. So we're going to use that gap analysis and also the in-demand skills list mentioned in engagement. And we're going to figure out, okay, this is the way we should go to design that new programming. And, convene relevant stakeholders in those groups as well. Longer time frame again, and this is going to require a lot of people. So we put that time frame for June 26, which would be 2 years from when the strategic plan was first approved. And yeah, we have a lot of partners here to accomplish that. And then our last strategy under alignment, which would be to create the Governor's Workforce Development Board workforce dashboard. I think this has also been mentioned in years past with the board, but to truly get something up and be able to monitor all the action and measurements that are in this plan overall. This is kind of like the one place shop where the board can go to assess how things are going. So the first step for the workforce dashboard would be to go to your partners and get those metrics, and then also develop data sharing agreements with everybody, finalize those agreements. So we'd like to hopefully get that done before the session to show we have some traction with that. And then as you can see, there's a lot of partners involved with that, and I'm probably missing some, but just anywhere where we could track those metrics to get a holistic and comprehensive view of the workforce system. Those data sharing agreements need to be established. And then the second part to that third strategy in the performance with the workforce dashboard is to create the dashboard. And then once we create it, we can monitor the metrics and continuous improvement at the Governor's Workforce Development Board meetings. So we'd like to complete that dashboard by May of next year, which would be during session, and it could be a great and valuable research tool for everybody here. And you'll notice with most of these that we put just our agency going and the Governor's Workforce Development Board as execution team. We're putting the onus on ourselves to get these resources done, but just, with collaboration in mind for asking people for their input and everything like that. But this goal is to make sure that the things that we are saying we're going to do get tracked, and how do we use that tracking to make data informed decisions. So that's the alignment strategy, right? That's the alignment goal right there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Katie. Absolutely outstanding work on the part of you and your committee, and the speed in which you got all of this done was quite extraordinary, to say the least. Does anybody have any questions for Katie for clarification?
No, Mr. Chair, no questions, but as a precursor to the rest of her presentation, what I would share with everyone is that, yes, in some cases it indicates Owen and the Workforce Development Board, but definitely it's going to be a collaborative effort, and we're going to encourage that, and you'll see that in the rules of engagement to follow. Very quickly, what I would point out is that through the leadership of our chair and assistance from others, we'll be looking to the subcommittees that have evolved over the past couple of years to help with the implementation of this, as well as the ongoing engagement. And then last but not least, what you'll see, I'll just introduce it right now and then come back to it later. Some of you may recognize the acronym AIR, Action, Impact, and Results. But the idea behind this is, again, we don't want the strategic planning document to be something that sits on a shelf, as well as I want you to recognize that the strategic plan ties to the 3 goals that were mentioned in the state compliance plan. It just further develops them into something that we can pay attention to and make progress on. And with that, I'll let Ms. Gilbertson continue her presentation.
Thank you. Katie Gilbertson again for the record. So after saying all that, it's, I think, helpful to kind of lay out the timeframes, the expected timeframes of all these items a little bit more. So here you can see we have December 24th, so the end of this year, as our first deadline. And then February 25th, so that would be before the legislative session next year. May would be during and towards the end of the session. And then September would be kind of we're out of the session, this has been a year since we've had this plan. And then, you know, giving a little bit of grace for people to come back from after the summer vacations and all that, to keep going on our goals. So we put September 25 as that 4th deadline benchmark, and then June 26th as the last benchmark for here, because that would be 2 years since we had passed the original plan. And so what you see here in all these boxes are the action items, and I just kind of simplified them so they're not so wordy. And then they also correspond. So like 1C here is 1C here. So it's kind of like a naming nomenclature to make it a little bit easier to see what this is all talking about. But the first 3 we have here, and then the colors also correspond with the topic. So blue is for the population, greens for the engagement, and then pinks for the alignment. So we picked these first 3 here as the priority because the application referral system is already in the works. The Did You Know campaign would be to start getting out that employer engagement and public workforce system awareness as soon as possible, and then distributing across the various channels. And then the workforce inventory, just to kind of get those pink steps, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, that's a subsequent process to get that started as soon as possible, and that we already have some traction with that. So those are our first 3 priorities for the end of the year. Transitioning over to, you know, through the winter before the legislative session, it'd be great to get that shared calendar up. The job seeker asset map as well, and then the in-demand skills list on the business side, and data sharing agreements for the dashboard to hopefully get that dashboard up a few months after that. So I think those 3 would be the February priorities. The May priorities are going to be the streamlining of services, our ecosystem asset map, and then creating the dashboard itself. The September deadline and priorities are going to be those the population outreach metrics, cross-promoting the workforce system to the business agencies, which will go in concert with the Did You Know campaign. Same with a priority for small businesses. It's contingent upon the completion of the Did You Know campaign. And then also in September, we're going to have that gap analysis, which is that piggybacks off of the ecosystem asset map. Then finally, in June 26th, we're gonna do the supporting the workforce system staff and trying to see where we can make those careers more appealing. And then we're also gonna start implementing some new programming based off of the gap analysis to make sure that there are no gaps in what employers need for workforce training. After kind of doing all this subsequent research of the inventory, the asset map, the gap analysis, and then finally making that new programming. So this is kind of how it's been laid out in terms of prioritization and how and subsequent steps.
Ms. Gilbertson?
Yep.
Vice Chair Evans, for the record, one thing I wanted to point out is that as it relates to the action items we're trying to complete before or early in the session, some of the feedback that we received as a board is that from the internal stakeholders, and I'm referring to some of the title programs, as well as maybe from some of the external stakeholders, and I consider those to maybe be some of the frontline training providers. There was a concern mentioned about, in some cases, yes, we want to do things that are more innovative or more efficient, but there may be some resource challenges. So part of the reason why we're trying to complete these steps in the order and the priority that we are is if we're in a position where we need to obtain more resources, either via the state legislature or federal resources in conjunction with the state legislature, by doing this in this manner, this will allow us as a workforce development board to be responsive to those concerns that were voiced and keep things moving in terms of improving and making the workforce development system more innovative. Thank you, Ms. Gilbertson.
No, great point, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you. Any other questions on the timeline before we keep going?
Well, Katie, Hugh Anderson for the record, piggybacking on Ken's comments, based on the relationships that your office and you particularly have made nationally with various organizations and other state boards, we're going to steal some stuff off of other people's shelves to plug into these things to be as efficient and effective as possible, because we have found some very best-in-class resources already being utilized elsewhere with their pain points already smoothed over. So I think that's another critical point that needs to be emphasized, that we're not just we're not starting from scratch with everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good segue to the next slide, Mr. Chair, because we got a performance scorecard which we stole from the state of Oregon. Our great partners at the Oregon State Workforce Board.
Pardon me, Gilbertson. This
yeah.
is Vice Chair Evans here. The terminology I prefer is acquisition.
Acquisitioned, yeah. We acquisitioned this from Oregon. I'm sure a lot of other states do this, but it's not even word for word. I did make it a little bit more Nevada and changed a couple of things, but this is just a performance scorecard to make sure that, you know, the things that we said we were going to do, that we have the status and make sure that we're going to do that. So there's really no new information on this one. The only thing would be the status indicators. So obviously red hasn't been started, yellow's in progress, and then we'll have a green eventually that will show done. I also put just like a notes column here, but so I organized this by time period. So just like on the last slide, how we had the timeline, this is just organized by that. And it provides like a good, I think, snapshot as to how we need to get these things done in order and who are the people involved and what are we gonna make out of it, right? And we can update this continuously, make this a pretty live and transparent resource, I think, for the board. We can put this on the GOEN website too, just to make sure that everybody can see this is the progress we're making. And if things stay red for too long, then there's time to nudge and get things done. So this is the first page of it, and then this is just the second page of it. These are the later dates, obviously, so more reds, but yeah, those are the 2 pages of that. Anything to add, Mr. Chair or Vice Chair?
No, I think that was an excellently procured exhibit from our friends in Oregon.
Yeah, acquiesced. Okay, all right, so then just the last piece of information we have in the slideshow today is execution teams and roles of engagement that Vice Chair Evans alluded to a little bit earlier. So how are we gonna get this all done? Right, we're gonna have to put some teams together, and we're gonna start, I guess, more with the sooner deadline ones. So that would be December 24th, end of this year, and then Feb 25. So that's before the legislative session. And this is honestly half of it because this is 7 items right here. So that's half of the 14 that we had. So it'll be a good way to kind of just get some early traction and some early push before the legislative session. And again, these are the action items for each thing. And then, so how we're gonna go about for the execution teams, we'll send this out to the partners that are on for the execution teams for December 24 and February 25, and say, please assign a point person. You can just, I'm assuming, just have them tell me, then I'll share with Scott and Chair Anderson and Vice Chair Evans that these are the people we're gonna start assembling. We would like all of these execution teams to meet before our next full board meeting on August 21st, or, maybe not necessarily every partner that's listed on there needs to be involved in the process right now, but whoever needs to be involved in the process right now, have them meet and just get some sort of, have them meet, have them try and understand the task and get those conversations started. So we'd like to do that before our next full board meeting in about a month. And then Vice Chair Evans, I don't know, did you want to go through this one, just kind of the purpose of the execution teams and why we're doing it like this?
Yes, Ms. Gilbertson, I'll be glad to hop in with this and add my flavor to it.
Sure.
First and foremost, thank you very much for providing the structure, the content, and the guideposts for us to use as we seek to, I'm going to hop ahead to the 4th bullet there. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we cooperate and collaborate in order to get this done. By no means do we think that we can do this by ourselves, as well as one of the things we recognize is that in many cases, there are pockets of excellence within our workforce development system. But I think what we'd rather see, hence the goals and eventual action items we've come up with, is we'd rather see a system where there are no silos. We tear down any unnecessary barriers. And when it's all said and done, get everyone to play well together in the sandbox. So, and that relates to the first bullet there, where what we're hoping is with these execution teams and overall, we'll get everybody to work across agencies to achieve a common goal. And again, the common goal is to make our system be more professionally and culturally competent so that we provide access and awareness on the front end, and then a pathway to careers and a livable wage on the back end. Something else that I'd like to very quickly say as far as the common goal is, let's keep in mind that the 2 primary clients are, number one, obviously the people using the system to gain employment, but a second very key client of what we're doing is the businesses, i.e. the job creators, the employers as well. So when it's all said and done, let's keep those common clients in mind for the system. I already talked about breaking down silos or avoiding having pockets of excellence, instead of having systemic excellence. The other thing that I really want to stress here is the idea behind doing this is to be innovative. The last thing we want to do is to continue, as they say, to expect different results, but keep doing the same things. The definition of insanity, if you will. What we would prefer is that let's be innovative. That's in the title or the name of the Office of Workforce Innovation. The idea is we appreciate what's been done historically. We'll glean from that, from whatever makes sense to continue doing. But at the end of the day, if there's some things we can do to reach people that aren't being reached, if there's things we can do to engage businesses that aren't currently either A, aware of the system, or if they're aware of the system, they're still not using it, then we need to figure out some new ways to do things And then again, last but not least, if there are people seeking employment that are not aware of the system or engaging the system, let's be innovative to make sure that they engage. Again, having a spirit of cooperation and collaboration, basically camaraderie. Let's all work together to get this done. And that's the reason why I brought up what I did about the resource challenges and constrictions. We're not going to sit up as a board and pound people, if you will, when they're trying to do their best. Our goal will be, as we're making our way through this effort, if you identify things that we can do to bring visibility, if not to actually resolve some of the resource challenges or constrictions, that's what we're here for as a board. You know, we intend to have a collaborative spirit as well. And then last but not least, I'll relay something that as a young engineer years ago, several decades ago now, when I was working for the Department of Energy, I had this senior manager basically tell me what gets measured gets done. So in that spirit, the reason why we're going to have the scoreboard, the reason why we broke things down from the 3 strategic goals that were in the compliance plan to the eventual action plan items and then strategies is because we want to have bite-sized pieces that we can individually and collectively work together to make sure that we're making progress. And part of that is the accountability of measuring things, dealing with any challenges, and then closing things out, hopefully in concert with the timeline as covered by Ms. Gilbertson. So again, I'll conclude my part by saying thank you very much to everyone who participated to get us to this point, and now look forward to working together to make some things happen and continue to demonstrate progress that ultimately gets Nevadans employed and keeps businesses provided with the workforce they're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Katie, anything else?
No, we didn't get Scott to jump in, but that's okay. I'll stop sharing the screen here, but I think he would, you know, as the governor's designee for this office, I think he would echo in saying that the governor endorses this plan and he's excited to see what's going to come from this. And I think that, you know, back to Vice Chair Evans's point, that's why we're tracking it, you know, to make sure like we can say, we presented you this plan, this is what's going to get done, you know, sort of thing. And I think that Scott's really excited to have that sort of endorsement from the governor's office, as well as transparency in the progress towards the goals. So that's my Scott remarks.
Yeah, and Chair Anderson, if I may, I'll just add one little piece to this. The role of the executive board will be to essentially make sure that everything's being tied together, make sure that 2 things. Number one, that all our board members assigned to the board are part of a subcommittee, at least one. And number 2, that they're aware of the strategic plan and their ability to participate in its implementation. And then the second thing that the role of the executive board will do is, again, in the spirit of identifying if there's any resource limitations, constrictions, are there some innovative things that we want to do? But again, there's some challenges. The role of this executive board will kind of be a conduit ultimately to the governor to see what can be done to resolve that. So when it's all said and done, the executive board is going to be responsible for board member engagement, as well as making sure that we actually implement this strategic plan as signed off by the governor, as well as agreed to by us all.
Thanks, Ken. All right, Katie, no word from Scott?
No,
Well, you did an excellent job of
thank you.
chiming in for him.
Thanks.
All right. All right, so let's move on to agenda item number 8 for discussion and information only. I'd like to see if there's any new business from the executive committee members you want to bring before the committee. All right, seeing none. Before we move on, I kindly request that any member of the executive committee who arrived late after roll call was taken to please identify yourself at this time so you're marked present. I think we got everybody, didn't we, Katie? All right. And so moving on to agenda item number 9, members of the public are invited for final comments. And seeing or hearing none, I hereby move to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your participation and your engagement.
Thank you.